The how to play video at the beginning of Smash teaches the basic techniques in terms of movement and combat. However, this video is far from exhaustive, and there exist a large number of techniques which are not discussed in the video. Now, Super Smash Bros. Is an extremely deep game, far more than meets the eye. There's a vast difference between a competitive and a casual player. Yet, a large number of the scene's casual players incorrectly believe that they are skill capped. They think that they have achieved a technical plateau, and the only thing they can improve is their tactics. However, they believe this to their detriment. I believe that Smash is a beautiful game, and by learning and utilizing the advanced techniques, you will find much more satisfaction than mere button mashing. Part 1 of this series will deal with fundamental techniques. These are techniques that provide a foundation for higher level play, and can easily be learned and incorporated into your game with only a little practice. It's likely that casual players will already know a few of these techniques. However, I hope I can bring insight to these familiar techniques and also introduce some new ones. To make sure that you're gaining the most you can from this video, it's important to understand the setup. On this main screen there are 3 parts. Obviously, we have the game section on the right, but there's also a controller in the bottom left which shows the inputs I use, and then finally a quick description of the technique right above. It's a good idea to test out the techniques by yourself in training mode after you watch them, or if that's not your style, then just make a conscious effort to utilize them while you're playing with your friends. So, here's part 1.
Fast falling is a very basic technique, but it's also really useful. All it is it increases your fall speed by tapping down on the thumbstick anytime you're falling. So you can see that I'm reaching the platform much faster than my pink counterpart because I just tap down on the thumbstick after I fall. I can also run off a platform and fast fall immediately because I'm considered to be falling. This can really increase your movement speed if you make it a habit. You can do anything while you're fast falling that you could normally do while in the air. So you can fast fall and do up B, or you can fast fall and do an aerial. You can also fast fall and then jump again, and you have an option whether or not you want to fast fall your second jump. So this is really an option that allows you to change around your movement, make it less predictable what you're doing, but also make sure that you're going very quickly around the map. Next is teching, and this is a defensive option we have, specifically in the case where we're sent into the air by an attack from an opponent. So here, if Pikachu side smashes Captain Falcon does nothing. He hits the ground hard, and then either has to do a regular get up or a get up attack, and is very slow to recover. So what we do is we do teching, and all that is while you're in the air, you just have to press the Z trigger, and that you have a very large window to get this in. If you're interested in the specifics, you can look that up on Smashboards, but it's very large. It's about 1/3 of a second, and you just have to press the Z trigger once, and you will get up much quicker and be ready for combat. Also, teching is great because you get some frames of invincibility, which means you actually might be able to dodge some attacks that look like they should be hitting you if you tech at a good time. You can also tech roll, and that's done just by teching and holding either direction on the thumbstick while you do so. So you can tech left, you can obviously tech right as well. Tech rolling is really good if you need to create some distance between yourself and your opponent, or you think you can surprise them by tech rolling. But it should be mentioned that tech rolling provides less frames of invincibility than a regular tech. So overall, just teching in place is probably the standard option, and you only tech roll when you think it will give you an advantage.
Let's take a look at an example which should be very familiar to Smash players, and that is a Kirby who side smashes his opponent repeatedly across the stage. And this is quite a devastating little sequence if his opponent doesn't know how to tech. But we'll see here that if Donkey Kong techs correctly even once, then Kirby's fake combo will be much less effective. And if the Donkey Kong player is ready to tech at a moment's notice, then Kirby does almost no damage with this strategy. Another very familiar example will be Samus's down air. If her opponent is unable to tech, Samus can simply down air repeatedly and be able to finish with a back air or a forward smash. However, if Samus's opponent can tech, It's very simple to just hold sideways and tap the Z trigger, and as you'll see, they escape much of Samus's damage.
I'm going to briefly talk about the options players have while in their shields. Now in this game, the general rule of thumb is that the better you get, the worse shielding becomes. But I think it's still definitely important to understand the defensive options you have while in your shield, and it can, a lot of the time, even at a pretty high level, turn around pressure in your favor. So first off, something a lot of people don't know is that shielding takes time to drop. So it takes time after you shield before you can input another move. And I'll try to illustrate that with an example. If I press A twice, I do my double jab, and it comes out very quickly. As soon as I press the button, my character is jabbing. And that's because jab is a very quick move in this game. However, if I'm holding the Z trigger, and I let go of it and start spamming A, you can see that there's a pretty decent time gap between when I let go of my shield and when I start jabbing. And that's because it takes time to drop your shield. Now this time isn't huge, but it can really make a difference in a match. Fortunately, we have 5 options while in shield of things that we can do without having to drop our shield, and so we don't have to suffer that delay. And now these things we call out of shield moves, or OOS moves. First one is to jump, and that's by any traditional input, up on the thumbstick, one of the C buttons. Also you can short hop, just the standard way. The second thing you can do is to grab, and that's by doing A or R, either button will work. And now notice that the whole time I'm doing this, I never let go of the Z trigger. That's the whole point of out of shield moves. The third thing I can do is roll, and that's by hitting sideways on the thumbstick. And I can roll any direction. I have 2 more options, and those are to up smash or to do my up B move. And which one you use will depend on which character you are and what situation you're in. For instance, on Captain Falcon, up smash out of shield is a great option because it can allow me to really quickly turn around pressure into a combo in my favor. So that's just done by doing up and A or up and R at the same time, standard up smash moves. I can also, like I said, do an up B, and that's by doing standard up B. Now which move you choose to do will depend on the way in which your opponent messes up on their shield pressure, and also what character you are, and many other factors. But I'll try to illustrate a few examples so that you can see good examples of what to do when you're suffering shield pressure and you want to use an out of shield move.
Here, when Yoshi is caught in his shield by the Fox player, he starts spamming the jump buttons and is eventually able to find a frame to jump out. When Ness notices that the Fox down airs in front of his shield, he's able to respond by pressing A and shield grabbing the Fox. As Samus starts taking shield pressure from behind, she spams away and is able to roll out. Because Donkey Kong's up B comes out very quickly and has good range, it's a good idea to spam it while taking shield poke, and often you can hit them away from you. Lastly, when this Captain Falcon takes shield pressure from the Fox, he's able to up smash out of shield, and although his combo doesn't work, he totally alleviates all the pressure that was on him.
Edgehogging is a technique used to prevent your opponent from recovering, and it's built upon 2 facts. The first fact is that only one person can be holding onto the edge at a time. The second fact is that right as you grab the edge, you gain a few frames of invincibility, and this is indicated by the little flashing light. This means that attacks that look like they should hit you won't do any damage to you, and they won't knock you back. So you'll be able to continue holding on to the edge. So if we put these 2 things together, we get the technique called edgehogging, which is when we purposefully grab the edge right before our recovering opponent would, so that they instead just fall to their death. This technique's a little bit awkward at first mechanically, but it becomes very natural after a while. The best way to get onto the edge from the stage is to be near the edge but facing inward, and then jump and move your character backwards so that they fall down and grab the edge. Once you get comfortable with this, it's a good idea to incorporate some fast falling onto the edge, and that will allow you to have some flexibility in respect to the timing of when you actually grab the edge. The next thing you have to worry about which is the real hard part about this technique, is the invincibility frames. And this is just a case of having good game knowledge. We want to grab the edge soon enough that our opponent doesn't grab it before us, but we also don't want to grab it too soon, otherwise our invincibility frames will expire and will no longer be protected from our opponent's up B attack. Edgehogging is best done against opponents who have low vertical recovery, for example Captain Falcon or Link or Donkey Kong. It can be really good against almost anyone, depending on the situation. So now I'll show you some examples of both successful and unsuccessful ledge hogs and say what either went right or what went wrong about the attempt.
We follow a Luigi player hoping to ledge hog his fox friend, so he throws him off the edge and immediately gets to the ledge. But because he's been hanging there so long, his invincibility frames have expired and he's hit by Fox's up B. This time when he tries, he throws the fox off, but doesn't make it to the ledge in time, and once again is hit. Finally, he's learned his lesson, and he waits until Fox has begun charging his up B, and then immediately fast falls to the ledge, using his invincibility frames to ledge hog his opponent.
Tilts are quick attacks, which are done on the ground by tilting the thumbstick in any direction and pressing the A button. And in general, a tilt will be in between a jab and a smash attack in terms both of power and quickness. So we can perform the 3 different tilts on any character by tilting the thumbstick in the direction that we want and pressing the A button. So all characters have an up tilt, a forward tilt, and a down tilt. So to do an up tilt, I just tilt the thumbstick up and I press the A button. And you can see that this is different than Pikachu's jab attack and different than his up smash. I can also do a down tilt by tilting downwards and pressing A. And I can do a forward tilt by tilting forwards and pressing A. You'll notice there's no such thing as a back tilt, because if I try to tilt behind myself, I just turn around and do a forward tilt in that direction. For the sake of being rigorous, I should mention that you can actually angle your forward tilts. So if I'm forward tilting over the edge here, I can tilt slightly down, and I can get a downward angled forward tilt. And I can also tilt slightly up, and get an upward angled forward tilt. Now this distinction is not one which I think is important until you get very good at this game, but it's worth knowing. However, being comfortable with up tilt, down tilt, and forward tilt can be extremely important, and it can help you out a lot even at a low level without too much practice or knowledge of combos. So I'm going to show you now some examples of how to use tilts and some ways that I like to practice learning how to tilt.
Here we have a fox fighting against a Yoshi who's at a mid%, and the fox may try to do a powerful attack such as a side smash, but will find that his opponent is too far away for him to follow up. So instead, the fox will use a tilt to keep Yoshi closer to him so that the follow-up will connect. And you can see in the combo meter in the top left corner, the down tilt into up airs does actually connect for a true combo. And so here we see that tilts allow follow-up. Here we see a Captain Falcon in an opportunity to edgeguard another Falcon. And instead of choosing to side smash or Falcon punch, he simply down tilts at the appropriate time. And we see that tilts here allow the precision required to properly edgeguard. Yoshi wants to combo this Pikachu, and after his dash attack, he's able to use a forward tilt to set him up for his finisher, which is his forward air. So we see that tilts allow comboing by setting you up for your finishers. I don't really have much to say about this, other than that it feels weird to make a tilt section without Kirby's up tilt. It's pretty ridiculous, and even if he doesn't know how to combo, getting caught in one up tilt can easily cost you a stock.
So the issue with up tilting is it's very easy when you're trying to up tilt to accidentally jump. And what we want to do is learn how to avoid that. And we do that by finding what I call up tilt position, which is where you have the thumbstick not fully extended upwards and not in the neutral position, but halfway in between. And if you can find that position on command, then you should be able to up tilt with relative ease. So to find this position, we want to move the thumbstick up and return to the neutral position quickly. as you can see in the bottom left on the controller. And we slowly increase this range until we find the point where our character starts jumping. And once our character jumps, we know that this is too far and we've reached the end of the up tilt range. And so we just tone it back a little bit so that we can do this without jumping. Hold it at the top and press A, and that's our up tilt position. And so if we can learn how to get to that every time, then we'll have really good up tilts. A forward tilt is done by being in the walking animation and pressing A, even if you're only in the animation for a second. So if you're running and you press A, you'll do a dash attack. So you know if you're trying to do a forward tilt and a dash attack comes out, then you've accidentally entered the run animation. And if you do a forward smash, it means you've tapped the thumbstick too hard at the same time you pressed A. So in this game you can't walk off the edge in general. So if you have the thumbstick tilted over, as I do in the bottom corner of your screen, I can still press the A button and do forward tilts over the edge and still have that tilt position held because I won't walk off the edge. There's a little bit more to think about strategically when we look at down tilting. So you'll notice that if I just hold down and press A, I get down tilts even though I'm not in a down tilt position. And this is actually acceptable a lot of the time because of a property called crouch canceling. And crouch canceling is when, if I'm holding down and I'm crouching while I get hit by an attack, I'll receive much less knockback than if I was standing up. So if we're in a match scenario and I'm fighting an opponent, I might as well hold down for down tilts, because that will mean that if I accidentally get hit with an attack, I'll automatically be crouch canceling it. Now it's still really important to learn down tilt position, which is, as you notice, Pikachu is standing up in between these down tilts. And that's because you want to be able to down tilt on platforms without falling through. And it also allows you to do something called drop zone down airs, which is when you can do a down air while you're falling without fast falling. These are really important for characters who have spikes, who actually require a little bit of subtlety to play, so just not Kirby pretty much. Because you can actually be really punished by fast falling a spike and end up trading 1 for 1 instead of just getting a clean kill. So learning down tilt position is still really important. So the last thing I want to talk about in terms of tilts is something called buffering. And that means that you can prep your up tilts, for example, before you land by doing another move that requires you to press up on the thumbstick. So for example, if I do an up smash and just keep holding up, now when I press A, I'll do up tilts. And a lot of players will rely on this to get their up tilts up. They'll just do up smashes every time before. But this is obviously really bad strategically, to always have to waste an up smash before you can do up tilts, or have to jump and do some kind of aerial to get your buffer in. So it's okay to use buffering if you want to do up smash into up tilt, which is pretty good on Pikachu a lot of the time, and that's fine. But it's really bad if you have to rely on buffering to get an up tilt out. So I strongly recommend you learn tilt positions. So here's a quick drill that you can do to practice 3 of the advanced techniques we've learned so far. This is what it looks like. So all that is the backwards jump that we learned in edge hogging, because we have to backwards jump onto the edge when we're trying to edge hog against our opponent. So we do a backwards jump onto this middle platform, immediately up tilt when we land, and then when we run off, we fast fall to get back to where we started, and repeat the drill. This is a good drill because it makes us focus on some of the more subtle movement options that a lot of casual players won't utilize, such as the backward jump and the fast fall off of platforms. It also makes us activate the thumbstick as we're moving around, which will get us much better repetitions of our up tilt position than if we simply found the position and just pressed A over and over, which really isn't practicing at all. So once you're getting comfortable with this, you can try to make it so your character lands right in the middle of the platform as much as possible, and that will obviously only increase your movement. So there are 2 things that can go wrong in terms of our up tilt position. The first is that we jab when we land, and that means we're below the up tilt threshold, and we need to tilt the thumbstick higher. The second thing is that we jump and do an up air instead of landing on the platform, and that is the opposite. It just means we've gone up out of the up tilt threshold, and we need to pull it back so that we don't activate our second jump with our thumbstick. Obviously, this drill can be used to practice the forward tilting and down tilting as well in the same way, and so I encourage you guys to practice it with all three tilts to make sure you're really comfortable with your tilt positions.